Tuesday Movie of the Week.
Today, we're going to be talking about Disney's sale of some of its assets in order to have the money necessary to purchase Hulu. Now, this forced purchase of Hulu from NBC Universal is something that the Walt Disney Company probably really wishes now that it had never entered into as an agreement, because it is requiring them to come up with nearly, at a minimum, $10 billion additional dollars that they don't have right now as ready cash in order to complete that deal. That deal was made on the heels of the Walt Disney Company buying 20th Century Fox for the heart-stopping price of $71 billion, not including the land, the Fox network, which they couldn't get because of FCC regulations, Fox News, ditto, and Fox Sports, double ditto. So they actually were spending an incredible amount of money for an asset that really didn't have anywhere near that in terms of base value. Remember that the year Disney closed on that, the company itself, all of it, had been valued at $45 billion. But because of interest that supposedly was coming from Universal and Bob Iger's determination to put in a big studio into their operation, he allowed the price to be jacked up to that astonishing level without even getting all of the assets. I personally had thought at the time that Disney's real interest was getting all of that land, because that is prime West LA land that is unencumbered at this point and could be used for further building. I know that that's a horrifying thought, to shrink the studio even further. After all, Century City is built up over the remnants of 20th Century Fox, which had been sold off since 1958. Not because of Cleopatra, although that didn't help, but mostly before that, and then later for Hello, Dolly, Dr. Dolittle, and Star. So we already have a situation where Disney was way overpaying for an asset, not getting a huge chunk of its real value, which was the land, and now being forced to pay this $10 billion. Now they are talking about fire saling some of their legacy properties, which are basically properties that were bought before Bob Iger took over the company. Ironically, one of the companies that they are thinking of selling is ABC. And that is the company that I want to focus on today, because that's the one that most people, when they hear it's part of the deal, they think, oh, well, of course, ABC. ABC is a depreciating asset and nobody watches linear TV anymore. Well, that's actually not true. In fact, if you look at the upfront sales, which is the amount of money that advertisers pay the networks in order to get their inventory of pre-buys in commercials, that went up in 2022. 2023, with the hints of recession, was obviously a little bit of a downer year, but reflecting the fact that linear television is still much more important in terms of overall viewer minutes than streaming is. This is an asset that people are looking at and saying is valueless way before time. This is every bit as ridiculous as when the studios were running around saying theatrical exhibition was done and it was all going to be streaming, and yet they still had their business plans based on a 5-window world. So again, just because something is not cool doesn't mean that it should be thrown away. And in terms of ABC, the amount of upfront dollars they got was nearly $4 billion last year. That's a substantial chunk of change, and actually keeps the network more or less in the black. So in terms of a lot of Disney's assets, it's one of the few that's actually performing up to standard. Now, truthfully, network is becoming a less and less important part. Truthfully, it is also getting older and older and older. But guess what? So is everything else. It's not as if Disney Plus is a wellspring of younger viewers. Most television always is older. And I know that nobody likes to hear that any more than they like to hear that the common audience, the core audience, is females 35 plus with an overrepresentation in non-Caucasians. Nobody likes to hear that because it's not cool, but that's the fact. And so Disney selling ABC is actually far more critical than it sounds. It means they're not selling off some dud asset that nobody wants and they're having to put her on fire sale. No, they're having to sell their core assets at this point. Core assets, which they're now saying, well, we don't see this as part of our core business in the future. And all I can say to that is why? Why would you say that ABC is not one of your core businesses when it's one of your few businesses that's actually returning a good return? That makes no sense. But to say that you have to fire sale it because you have this other asset that you need to buy, that does make sense. Now, it especially makes sense if through Hulu, they will still have some of the distribution rights of the programming that comes off of ABC. That might be a win-win. But based on the way the company has been positioning things, it doesn't seem as if they've really thought a lot of this through. The bottom line here is that ABC is not some completely dead asset. It is one that is still very viable. It's still one that's bringing in money. It's still one that is core enough to where Disney should not be wanting to drop it as hastily as they are. This is an indication more than anything else of how dire their situation truly is. More updates will be coming.